right, welcome back, Brew Crew, to another episode of Shedding Your Skin. First and foremost, just to go out and support U.S. ARC. They fight for our rights as reptile keepers. I don't really want to go into too much detail regarding what happened last week in Florida. You've all seen the news. You've all read the post. Just when you interact with people regarding that subject matter, just be professional and don't do anything you would ultimately regret or put our hobby and industry in a bad light. All right, with that being said, I'm going to go shout out the chat. Ken, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being first. Another PA guy, it's nice to know you're feeling better. Stan, thanks for tuning in. Chris, thanks for showing up. And I actually do have some brisket in the smoker right now doing a little trial run. So at least today I'm not concerned about what I'm cooking when I'm on my live like I have been previously. I haven't timed it right as far as what I have in there. So looking forward to that for dinner, hopefully. Tammy, thanks for tuning in. Let's see who else we got. Okay, we are caught up with the chat. Let me go put the little ticker on the bottom. Boom. There we go. And without further ado, here's our guest for this week, Tucker from Purple Rain Reptiles. Welcome.
How's it going?
It's going. It's the weekend.
Okay. I'm ready. I'm so excited.
All right. So give a brief introduction about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been keeping, how'd you get your name, that sort of thing. Just for those of us that don't know who you are, we can get a better idea before we take the deep dive into ball pythons and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So my name's Tucker. Purple Rain Reptiles is my, snake page name. It kind of came about around 2016, 2017, but I've been keeping reptiles for, I think green tree pythons, it's close to 12 years. I think it'll be 13 years in November. And then before that, I've had corn snakes, king snakes, ball pythons, things like that when I was a little kid. As I started getting into stuff, different lizards, kind of figuring out where the passion really set. And so as a kid, I kind of had a lot of different things, went through a lot of different pets, and eventually ended up settling on green tree pythons mostly. Those are kind of my bread and butter. It's what I love the most. It's what I've been the most passionate about and wanting to work with. And but then, the ball python side, I love those too. They're just a lot of fun. There's just different excitement. So it's kind of nice to work with both and kind of have that healthy balance. But I've been keeping them for quite a few years, probably in total close to like 16, 17 years that I've had reptiles. The snakes really picked up once I hit 7th grade. One of my science teachers had a ball python and a couple other things, a sabu python. And it was really cool to kind of see a lot of those things at a young age, and took the ball python home for the first time over the summer and just really fell in love with them. I tried to have them in the past, but it was a nightmare after that. I ended up getting corn snakes that escaped for like a week, just little tiny baby ones. And that was a nightmare. And my parents felt so bad that I lost something that they bought me a ball python. And then the corn snake came back, and then all of a sudden I had 2 snakes, and I was like, oh, whoa, I got 2 snakes. And then 2 turned into 3. And then it was just downhill from there. I ended up getting a lot of different things, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, I was that weird kid that had the snakes and the reptiles and whatnot when I was younger. And then when I went to college, I sort of I think I got rid of everything or traded. I wound up just only having a ball python, I think it might have been leopard geckos because my parents could take care of them. I forget what one it actually was. I might have traded the leopard geckos for a ball python later. Either way, I just had 1 snake, and then about 2017 or so when I moved, I got back into it and then discovered a lot had changed and morph market exists.
Right.
Then, okay, so I start going back to reptile shows, picking up, various things. And what's up, John? Thanks for tuning in.
They are, John, for sure.
And I got, I had some ball pythons, a little tiny dinky 3-tub sea serpents rack, and I'm going to breed like a normal butter, and I forget what else I had. And then I got the pandemic money, and I was like, okay, my job's good. Let's
No,
go.
that was a major boost for
Yeah, so
a
it was
lot of
like,
people,
I
myself
had a
included.
promotion at work, and then and started investing more, and then the pandemic money. So then I was able to buy more racking and things like that, and then it just sort of escalated out of control, at least for me and my size. So I added these racks behind me that are empty and need heat tape from Chris at B&S Reptilia.
Won't be empty for long, that's for sure.
So shortly they'll be filled up once I get the heat tape and move some of these hatchlings out of the hatchling rack, and as they're growing up, because I'll need room. The space I have now is not going to work for that.
I hear that, and I'm excited for baby season, but then at the same time, it's like, all right, there's a lot of stuff that needs to go on. Hey, Wiz Constrictors, thanks for the shout out. I can't see the chat, so anybody that's in there, I can't see it on my end, but I appreciate everybody that's tuning in.
I'll leave it up a little longer. So I should have 2 clutches due end of May, beginning of June, something like that.
Okay.
So I'm hoping the timing's right, so they hatch when I'm not on vacation, because I want to be here for that, because one of them is a joint pairing with a buddy.
Oh yeah, so those ones are a little bit more special. You really want to kind of be involved and make sure everything goes smooth. You never want to be the one that has the bearer of the bad news when it comes
because I'm
like that.
Oddly enough, I have his mail here.
Okay.
Yeah, he's my best friend, so it's sort of like, what? I have no use for this clown and this normal het pied this season. Go take him, breed him. We'll split whatever, and give me your ivory, because I want to make pumas. So.
No, there you go. And I feel that. I mean, last season, myself and Dylan, D's Balls and Exotics, that's the shirt right here. Him and I, we did some projects together. I had his pastel gravel male down here. We were breeding him to a couple yellow belly females, and a yellow belly and a black pastel yellow belly, and just to kind of hit some cool things. And then I think I actually have a few of his females here that we're breeding with the pin puzzle just to make some cool het puzzle combos. I think I have a clutch. It's going to be a double het puzzle clown clutch. She's due to lay literally any day. Today's day 31. So I was really praying that she would drop them before the show, just so it'd be kind of something exciting.
You're saying that last
She's
night.
Holding out. She really is. I mean, they're bulging, so I'm like, all right, they're right there. Just freaking spit them out already. And then I have another girl that's due to drop. I want to say it's like April 27th is day 30, so somewhere around there. And then the rest of them, I'm just waiting for them to start going off food. They've been bred like crazy, and now I'm just like, all right, start going off food so you guys can get pregnant. I know, tell me you got follicles, and it's almost there, just waiting.
Yeah. For me, it's like, okay, 2 of the 5 have gone already. One, I'm 99% sure she reabsorbed, because she's still off food, but she didn't like grow or do anything really the past couple of weeks. And the other 2 I'm still pairing up, so they might go later. Those are the ones I'm hopeful for, because it's my Ultramel stuff, making the heads and stuff for the Ultramel Pied project. And if I miss on that, I guess if I miss on the Ultramel Pied stuff this year, it really doesn't matter, because as long as it goes next year and I get the male, pinstripe double het, then that's fine. It's really what I want. I don't want to wait until the female Pied Het Ultra is grown up, because then it extends.
I know, I hear that.
It extends it by like 2 years, because I gotta, make a Ultramel het pied, and then hope I hit a male, and then pair that back, and hopefully, within 1 year I can do that. But anyway, so what other?
I hear it. I got 2 females that went off food for like a month. One of them still is off food, and they're just not getting big. So I'm like, all right, you guys are not going to do what I want you to do this year. And one of them is an Ultramel female that I was breeding with the pin puzzle. I really wanted some double het Ultramel puzzles. Yeah. And nope, that one's probably not going to happen this year. So just feed her up, get her big, and then try again next season and hopefully get it started, because it's still very early in the project. So I'm excited just to hopefully I wanted some double hets growing this year, but I'll take some double het puzzle clowns growing this year. I'll be excited about that. So there's something.
Yeah, I'm hoping as I have more stuff that I am breeding, that my, successful breeding percentage is relatively high. as far as intended pairing, and then successful laying of eggs. But I get it. Sometimes they're going to reabsorb. Sometimes your male's not going to want to go with that female, and it is what it is. And with a smaller collection, it's sort of, well, okay, do I want to go this route or just wait until next year and try again? And at some point, then just give up on that specific pairing and then add something else that works in that project. So aside from like clown, puzzle, some ultramel, what else are you working with as far as recessives go?
As far as recessive, the main stuff really is puzzle, clown, ultramel, and then I do have a banana pied and a special het pied. The special het pied was produced by Angel on a few weeks ago, or about a month ago or so. And then the banana pied was actually produced by Dylan, and he's just a low white banana pied. I really didn't have a desire to go the pied route. I wanted a banana pied. I wanted him low white. Dylan happened to produce one, and I was like, nope, I want it. I don't care if it's a male or female. I want it. So I don't know if I'll really breed him. I kind of want to make some banana special pieds at least once. And then I'm probably going to take the special into the puzzle, clown, and kind of the different routes on that one. So I have pied. I could work it. I just haven't really found what I want to work it into if I do. I have some blackhead stuff, and the blackhead pied stuff is really neat.
Right.
It would just be kind of starting from square one. I don't have anything that's het pied except for the special. So it's not just a super big recessive that I'm pushing in that direction. Maybe down the line if something pops out that's really neat, but I love pattern. I love the busyness of patterns, and I love the colors and the contrast. And when I want to do something like that, I can't really throw pied into it because if I produce some high white pieds with little patterns, going to be so mad. But at the same time, they're beautiful snake, so you can't hate them. But that's just not the direction that I'm shooting for. So mainly just puzzle, clown, and ultramel, and then I'd like to get DG involved eventually. I know Dylan's working it into the puzzle stuff, so I'm just going to let him do that and jump into it when he goes back out. But eventually I would like to add some DG stuff for sure to really enhance some colors.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my first recessive was a pied, but then it sort of switched to clown stuff because I had it, and then I really liked ultramel, so then I went with that. And then it's like, okay, everything's going to be branching off of ultramel for the most part, unless it's another project I kind of have to work because I can't work ultramel into it yet.
Yep.
So I got some snakes from Antoine that are double het, clown, genetic stripe, possible het enhancer.
Oh dang! Okay.
So they're males. So okay, I guess it's nice to have two in case one doesn't go or something happens. That's fine. But finding females for that project is stupid.
Yeah, it's tricky. I've noticed finding females for a lot of double het stuff, depending on which genes you're going after. But almost anything that involves ultramel and puzzle right now just seems to be pretty expensive. I mean, there's some other recessive stuff out there like the zebra and things like that are insane, and those things are definitely going to be a lot more expensive. The sunset stuff, I mean, that's really blowing up. So it's really a lot of fun seeing the new sunset stuff, because at first I was definitely not sold on the project. Kind of looking at it, I was like, all right, the adult version wasn't super sold on it, at least just from the pictures I'd seen. I hadn't seen one in person. But then now you're seeing like the DG sunset stuff, and you're like, okay, that actually looks pretty cool. That's bringing out quite a bit. And so it's fun seeing more people work the project, because I think it's shining a lot of light onto it. I'm not going to buy it when it's $60,000 for
for a breeding
double het or a double visual male or something like that. I mean, it'd be awesome. I wish I could, but those are some fun recessive projects that are really blowing up too.
And for me, I could go the genetic testing route when that stuff's available, but at the same time, it's like I just do it the old way.
Yeah.
It's a back burner.
And if it pops up, sweet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a back burner project. If I have a super pastel Enchi butter ghost, or hypo, I forget what line. I think it's ghost. Either way, so I could put that male to that, and then get everything would be het for hypo, 100%, and then pos het everything else.
Yep.
And with all those other, everything would be pastel too. So hopefully I don't hit a bunch of butters, but I could gamble on that. And if it pops out something crazy, then it's like everybody's going to hate me.
Or they might love you. You might be one of those things where you sold some animals and then you go, hey, by the way, that's probably double het for this, or that one is because of this. Hey, Angel, how you doing?
That's good, Angel. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so I mean, part of me wants to, like, if I don't have, something planned for a female, maybe go that route and try to make a 100% het pos het, for three other things. Maybe test those. I don't know. Sort of up in the air, because it makes no sense to test the males currently, right? Unless
you don't have any females for them at the moment. I mean, it can wait a little bit.
Right.
Once you start really in the position to start adding those females, that's probably when I would test them, be like, okay, so I know they're for sure this and this, so I want to make sure I'm adding this and this. But right now, I could understand it definitely wouldn't benefit if you don't have females that you're looking at adding and you're ready to add them. That's when I'd probably be like, okay, let's get them checked, just before you're getting that position.
Right, because either way, if I'm pairing it to something that doesn't have those recessives, I got to test it anyway. Because it's not going to be 100%. So, I'm sort of, it's a back burner. I mean, it's a nice project, don't get me wrong, but it's, for me, it's on the back burner until I have something. I either acquire something that I can pair to them. I have, like, a year or so. So it's not, it's on my mind, but it's, if I can get some females now, grow them up, and then in 3 years.
Just something that could be fun. And if it pops out, sweet. And if not, then, it's still just something that's just kind of fun to do.
Right. It's because I have my eyes on a 100% het genetic stripe, possible at DG girl.
Oh, that's a nice one.
I'm 50-50, making genetic stripes, which is okay, cool. They're inexpensive now, but if they both prove out, then it's like, all right.
Then it's sweet. That's something that DG stripes are pretty cool.
And then it'd be possible a het for clown, and then 3 years. I
start the project and see what happens.
I mean, I could be really lucky and get into that project for next to nothing.
True.
So I mean, that's something I have on my mind. But then at the same time, I get deal with my own projects that I'm heavily focused on and heavily invested in. So.
Oh no, I hear it. It's definitely doesn't. It's not cheap when you want to play with a lot of fun stuff, and when you want to play with the good stuff, you pay for it. And so, but it's worth it. I mean, it really shouldn't be about how expensive it is. If you're really passionate and you want to work with that thing, and your life is better having that thing in your collection, then 100%. Go after and get it. Don't go broke for it. Don't put yourself in a position you can't recover from, and then it's up for sale in a couple weeks. But that's really, money shouldn't be the factoring of something that is really meaningful to you. If you're passionate about that animal, you see an animal and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to have it. Get it. If you love it, that's what's really important. You have to breed and hopefully produce stuff that people will be interested in buying. But at the same time, the passion side of it is, it's just fun producing them. It's fun making really cool stuff. And, I don't really mind if other people don't like it. I love it. And so I'm happy to have it as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't sell a snake, I'm slightly upset and maybe a little bit offended, but I don't think
I get it.
I don't think because I'd probably be doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just that it's a little bit of icing that you can turn this into a business and make some money. But producing really cool stuff, like last year when my normal proved to be het for pied, when I bred it to my champagne, I was like, I saw that snake in the egg, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I mean, I was really excited because it was my first clutch, but then it was a little bit more than just champagnes and champagne pastels and normals. I didn't hit any normals, so it was cool to see that prove out.
My second ball python clutch, I produced pieds, and it's kind of funny that I don't really work them. I had a pastel het pied male and a normal het pied female, and put them together, got 5 eggs, and 3 of the 5 popped out pied. Produced 2 high white pied males and then a medium white female and then 2 normals. And it was fun. I mean, it was super exciting. It was super cool. But then after that, I was like, all right, that was sweet. Now let's do something else. And so that's kind of the direction I went with that. But it's always funny just because of it. Oh, hey, what's going on, Sterling? Sterling snagged a couple of the Neos I produced back in 2021.
Nice.
And they are turning out awesome. I am super excited for them because they look sweet. And comparing to mine, I'm like, man, I should have kept some of those.
Yeah, I'm kind of, for me, it's a little bittersweet because the nicest snake I hatched out is actually it's a male and I have no need for it, but it's visually stunning. And I'm like, but it was part of a giveaway for Jeremy Warfels, when he had 1,000 subscribers, and we picked the egg randomly, and that's what happened to come out. And I talked to the person that won it. I'm like, if it's a girl, you can have the rest of the clutch. But it wound up being very obviously a boy, and I was like, I don't.
No, I produced some really nice females last season. Some really nice het clown stuff, and I don't know why I sold it. Looking back, I'm like, man, I should have just kept it all. But at the same time, I was like, whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's kind of the decisions you got to make when you want to add other things into your collection, and when you want to add other projects, you're making sacrifices. But some of those hit pretty hard to home, and now I look back at them and I see them with some size on them, and I'm like, gosh, I'm so happy for you guys. You guys got some awesome animals, but damn, I should have kept that.
Yeah, and for me, like I was telling you backstage, like space issues, right?
Yep.
I'm going to
definitely all boils down to having enough room.
Need another hatchling rack, which there were certain animals I didn't plan on getting or anticipate coming as soon as they were going to be here. So I have 5 slots left in my hatchling rack. Yeah. Luckily, I have this and a couple are ready to move up there once. I think I have enough heat tape here that I can probably get the 2 biggest girls that are growing up out. And then I'll probably have some space in the rack behind me. So it frees up some, but not all. And then one's leaving. So, I don't know. I know the Bumblebee Spark laid like 8 eggs last year, something like that. So that's going to fill up whatever space I have if she's, does the same thing. And then the Butter one is, I don't know. Could be all slugs. It's the first time, so we'll see.
Well, luckily we got a few months until eggs pop out where that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I have enough space for most of it, but then if all of it goes, then I'm like, all right, well, probably having to add at least a couple more hatchling racks. And most of my stuff that I had in the hatchling racks that I kept or that were young, I just threw them in the CV70, threw a hide in there, and they've been loving it. They got tons of room. I see them super active all over the place. And so I just tossed them into the big ones and said, all right, go enjoy that life, and I'll give you a hide. And yeah, they're loving it. So I ended up moving all of my sub-adult stuff out of the room just so I could pop my desk back in my room just to be able to work from home for a little bit. And so I was like, well, you guys are all going in the big rack. I'm going to move these over to storage for at least a little bit for a couple months, and then it's going to have to come back out because I'm going to have some fun space issues here pretty soon, at least for hatchling stuff, especially if the green tree python stuff goes. I mean, I have my green tree python rack that I used for the Neos last time, and it worked really great, and I'll use it again, but that's good if only one of them goes. If 2 of them go or something like that, then I'm sweating a little bit, so I'll have to start adding some hatchling racks probably in June. Really get prepared for just in case. I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared.
Yeah, I remember I had my hatchlings since I only had 1 clutch, I was able to do it because I had so many tubs for incubation. I wound up putting them in the incubator, and that was the racking because my hatchling rack it got delayed and took forever to get here.
Oh, dang.
So they had been hatched for like 2-3 weeks or something like that. Had shed. They even ate in the incubator. It's like, come on, sea serpents. Ship the dang thing.
Sea Serpents is awesome. It's a good company to go to for those looking for hatchling racks. They have some really good hatchling racks.
Okay. I use an old mini fridge. I just put some computer fans in there and some heat tape and thermostat and a thermometer probe.
Kicking my desk. Sorry, guys. I know it's shaking it. No, I actually have a converted commercial freezer. Let me see if I can. You can see right there. So it's just a giant commercial freezer that I kind of upgraded and took all the freezy stuff out of it and threw some heat tape and the shelves, got some fans in there and all the containers, and yeah, it's ready to rock. So I'm excited. I used a small mini wine cooler fridge my first couple seasons, but I definitely needed a massive upgrade, and I got this for $100 and it was already broken. So I was like, sweet, I don't need it to work.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Something where the compressor's shot and it's like it's garbage. So I'm hoping there's a beer store up the road from me. I'm like, come on, this thing's old and it's got to go, and it's big, so I need help putting in here, and it would definitely throw some people for a loop having like a big cooler, but.
Yeah, I love it, but it is big. It takes up a lot of room, but if you want to hatch out a decent amount of clutches, you unfortunately need to have the space for it, and I'm not going to throw that poor thing in my son's room because take up half of his room almost. He's already got a fish tank in there, and he's got his pet snake in his room, and so his room's good. He wants hamsters, and I was like, yeah, probably not a good idea. Snake will want to eat all the time, and he's fine being over there, so I'd rather him just enjoy the fish tank and the snake.
So I do have a backup system right now. Since I was into aquariums way back, I have heaters and pumps and things like that, and I have a Walmart brand Yeti knockoff cooler that I don't use. Cause I got it to see if it would fit on my dad's boat. It does not fit. So it's just been sitting there since I have, a proper Yeti and, other stuff that I use. So it's just sitting there. I don't really want to sell it because, I can use it as
I know people have done that method of using the fish tank heaters and they plop it down into the water and keep it humid, and they just have like the light crate or something like that over it, and the eggs will just be sitting in a container on top of the light crate. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's a cool method. Definitely effective. I've seen people hatch stuff with that. So not a bad backup option.
And that's my if my Russian tortoises ever decide to breed, that's what I have to use because it's a completely different temperature and
incubator. That's where it is with the green tree pythons. Unfortunately, I should have kept my smaller one, but I was really tired of it. I didn't want to try to fit them both in here. So unfortunately, if the green tree pythons lay eggs, the ball pythons are incubating at cooler temperatures. Not super cool. They're going to be cooking around 87 for a little while. And then, so that's kind of the unfortunate side is the ball pythons take a little bit longer to incubate if you have to. Most of the time, I'm not that fortunate. Last season I didn't get any green tree pythons, but, we moved quite a bit. And so I didn't even expect ball pythons to do it. And some of them still did, which was impressive, but I didn't really try to breed the green tree pythons a whole lot. I wasn't that hopeful about it. This season, a lot more hopeful for it. So,
yeah, that's my fear because eventually I do have to move, and it's like I got to time it perfectly.
Yep.
Because I don't want to miss out on something that I was looking forward to. Let's say right now, because I got to upgrade and all that stuff. So.
I know we are not moving anytime soon. I will make this room work as long as I need it to because I'm sick of moving. It's not my favorite thing, especially moving with animals.
Right.
And, especially when you're dealing with, especially arboreal stuff. I hate moving it. It's always stressful popping it in a new location, letting it establish in there, letting things get used to where it's supposed to be and how it is, new routine, new room, new temps. And it's a pain, so I hate doing it. It's stressful for them. It's stressful for me. It's stressful for the family. None of us like moving. So I'm hoping at least a couple years. If I can do a couple years here, then I'd like to be able to move and upgrade, but nothing before then. So I'm at least going to write out a couple seasons and where we currently live.
Do you have any ball pythons you want to show off before we start to transition over to the
Over to
I mean,
the
I'm interested in.
everybody's most excited about the green tree
Yeah.
pythons. And
But we have to appease the some of the people in the chat that are ball python people, just so that they can see some, and we're not just talking about what's going on here.
I know, I definitely feel it. Yeah, I got a couple of them that are pretty fun that I can show off. People think I'm crazy, but I do put hides in all my tubs. I just like to give them a secure place. Unless they're laying eggs, then I take all of it.
Right.
Mainly because I like to see when that's going on, but I take it away before I start breeding. Once they hit breeding age, I take the hides out. Unless I get a new addition, once it adjusts and goes through quarantine and shows that it's healthy. Once it goes into a new tub, I always put a hide with it, no matter what. 'Cause I'm not breeding that thing anytime soon, so I want it to get comfortable. And then once they're eating consistently, then I'll start pulling them out. Once they start getting bigger, or they just start crapping on it more than anything.
I've had some that do that, and then they'll wedge themselves up on top rather than using the actual hide. I've had some that do that, and it's like, okay, you know what? You're not using this. You don't need the heat from the one above you.
I don't know how well this lighting is going to be. So he's a banana Enchi clown. I always get the camera thing mixed up, and I tried to move my big light just to make it better, and I realized it just made it worse. So I should have just kept it the same, and I'll probably be moving it back afterwards.
It's difficult with cool light snakes.
Yeah, it's impossible to get decent lighting on him, so it looks super intense on the top where it whites it out. But he's a banana Enchi clown, produced by my friend Rosie, local breeder. Super cool guy. I mean, he was just really neat. I wanted to have another clown male, something a little bit different. And I don't mind if he produces male banana clowns, as long as he produces female clowns of other stuff. I'm cool with that. One of my favorites from this last season. He'll get pretty active here pretty soon. So he's the one I post all the time. He's a super orange dream, fire yellow belly, 100% het clown. I don't know if you can see his little face, but super awesome male. He's actually probably pushing up closer to like 350 grams already. He's just a power eater. He just loves to eat. His colors are really sweet. I love his tail. I'm going to get the camera thing messed up. Sorry, guys. There we go. He's got a cool, just striped tail. And then it just gets really intense on the bottom. I just love that the black outlining right underneath it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now it's almost uninterrupted.
Yeah, so he's definitely one of my favorites. His sister was one of the ones that I sold that I regret. She was everything he is, but she had cinnamon too. So she was super awesome female. But I'm really glad at the person I got her. She went to a really good home and is going to produce some really awesome stuff. The males that she has, I'm really excited about. They're definitely better than my clown males. So I was like, yeah, go for it. I probably won't bring out any of the adults that I've been breeding because I just want them to just keep doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But here's a cool one. I'm actually really enjoying how this guy's turning out. This guy is the banana pie, the low white. He's getting super speckly. And I just love that his white basically just goes down along his sides. And his top still has all the pattern. And just a super awesome male.
Anything that goes all the way around? Or is it just that?
He's got one spot that goes all the way around, and that's just right at his tail. And then everything else is just up along the sides, even up along his upper body. So it's cool. He was basically the perfect low white that I wanted. Something that had a little bit going around, but he is 95% pattern, and he is awesome. He's really cool. Really good eater. I just wish I had something that I kind of wanted to breed. He went off food for about a month and was like, hey, I just want to breed, dropping plugs everywhere, and almost felt guilty that I didn't pair him with something. I knew he would probably go after it. And just a cool male. Yeah, hopefully in a couple of years, this girl will be ready.
My campaign's like that this year because I'm not pairing him to anything and he's off food hates me.
So here's Angel, because I saw him comment on it. So this is a special het pied that he produced, and I just wish my lighting is awful. I hate it. I'm sorry, everybody. But I thought I made it better, and I didn't. She is super cool.
I mean,
She's a long ways away.
Nothing's really washed out, so I mean, you're good. It's not terrible on my end.
I just love her pattern. She is just super intense. A lot of fun. She's really grown up really nice, and I'm excited. I mean, the special pied stuff is going to be really sweet. Angel's got a male that I love. It's just a cool high white pied, and that's something that my fiance Paris, she loves the high white pieds. So that's the whole purpose of making high white pieds, so I can make a banana high white pied for her, and then I'm going to get into the other stuff and maybe breed it into. Thought about like the super banana pied stuff. I thought that might be kind of cool. This is Angel's favorite, man. He did this to me on purpose. He just sends me mean snakes. She has got one of the biggest attitudes, but she is so cool that you just love her. You can hear her hissing. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but she just hates everything about me. I know, you just always make me.
Oh, there we go.
And she might bite me, but hopefully not. She's just such a jerk. She's just hissing. So she's a pastel vanilla yellow belly / specter. And man, you're so jumpy. I love her pattern. It is just so awesome. She is just so cool. She's probably pushing, I don't know, I don't weigh my snakes, but I would guess she's somewhere in like the 800-900 gram range. So she'll definitely be ready to go hopefully this fall. She's a power eater. She loves to eat. And most of the time during feeding, she comes flying out of the tub. It's usually a standoff with me back here. She'll just strike at any movement until I can get her a little bit closer back to her tub. She's one of the only ones that does it.
I had one lunch. I had to pick it up off the floor when it was all done. Because that's how hard she struck at the rodent.
Here's a cool one that's probably going to get washed out in the light because she's all white. So she's a pastel banana ivory produced by Dylan. You can kind of see, I doubt you'll probably be able to see it actually, but she's got her black spots that still come through. And I just think it's so cool that the black speckles still come through on an ivory. She's just another really pretty female. She's actually probably about 1,000 grams. So she'll be ready to go next year, or I guess later this year. It's already April, so breeding season again for next year is coming up. I'm gonna keep most of that stuff away. I did produce this guy back in 2021, and he just shed. He's another really cool guy. He's a banana Enchi fire, and just a super cool, simple combo. Paris really liked him, and so we had to keep him. And so he's just been living in the racks. Probably another one that I won't breed. We have a few of those. My son Winter, he's got a snake in his room. It's a black pewter, 100% het clown male, and beautiful male, awesome. But I just don't have anything that I want to breed with it, and that was kind of his pet. So we have a few that are just kind of hanging out. The fun stuff is really almost everything else. Not that one. She might light me up too. I'm pretty sure. So this is a yellow belly, 66% het puzzle. She's got another terrible attitude, and she was produced by Dylan, D's Balls and Exotics, and she's just always super tense. And so I'm pretty sure she's gonna prove het puzzle. She's got a really nice connecting chaining going down, especially on this side too. And she's just yellow belly, possible het puzzle, possibly one of the meanest babies I've had to deal with in a long time. She's just got a lot of attitude, She doesn't even like her reflection sometimes. But I try to take pictures of her. She's always striking.
Yeah.
Dylan and Angel always just send me the mean stuff, and then I produce really nice stuff. So I don't get it. They probably do it to me on purpose. I always give them crap about it because always the snakes that I get from them give me like the hardest time. They're always just so nasty. They got the biggest attitude towards me. And I'm like, man, I didn't do anything to you guys except for take care of you. And this is what I get. So I always give them crap about it because I kind of have to. But no, those guys are awesome people, really great breeders, and produce some awesome stuff. But I just end up always getting the stuff that just doesn't like me.
My Mojave hypo that I got from Malaysia at Wiz Constrictors, he's like, she's mean, but she eats, and
and that's the thing. I mean, they eat and they turn into great breeders. So you're just like, forget it. All right, you can hate me. I still love you.
Yeah, I mean, I got her when she was going into shed. She ate like 2 days later after I got her, and she ate again the other day. So it's like, okay, I have no qualms about any hatchling, any juvenile snake that's gonna fly out of the tub at me, as long as they're not gonna go off food anytime soon. Because when the smaller ones don't eat, after a while you start to get concerned.
Oh, I know, especially when the babies start giving you a hard time. And I don't know, I've been kind of fortunate because once you establish green tree python babies, it doesn't feel nearly as intimidating when you have a ball python that doesn't want to eat. There's just some cool tricks and tips that you can use to get them to eat that are so similar with green tree pythons that I'm like, oh, sweet. So you guys like chick down too? Okay, I could do that and get them on the frozen thawed. And so it's kind of fun. I don't know. They don't stress me out nearly as much as when you have a green tree python that stops eating, because that's usually where it sucks. That's usually when something's happening, or it either wants to breed or there's a problem. And those are the two terrible situations. Which one is it? And it's always the kind of the fun gamble what you're playing with.
And with ball pythons, at least adults, is it breeding season? Because that could explain the male. Are they building? They finish building and they're going through the process of getting ready to ovulate, that sort of thing. That explains it. Or I moved your hide, or I moved your water dish to the other side, and it's like, okay, you stress me out. I'm not going to eat for a month.
Yep.
So, or I smelled the dog, something like that. So it's I'm not concerned until I start to see the snake having issues appearance wise, and for a larger snake, it can take quite some time.
It takes time before they start doing it. Shoot, I had the pastel gravel from Dylan. Man, that snake stressed me out so much. It was eating and eating and eating, and as soon as it got to my house, it didn't want to eat. And then, but it also lined up because he typically went off food like October, November. I think he maybe ate one time, something like that. And then he just stopped eating. And I was like, oh, damn. But he was like almost 2,000 grams, probably about 2,000 grams. Huge male. So I was like, all right, well, I hit up Dylan. So what do we want to do? Should we just start breeding him since he just went off food? Yeah, screw it. Let's just start getting him going. So we started breeding him and everything. And he ended up producing a couple nice clutches, and it was really nice. But it just stressed you out. He didn't start eating again until like June. It was like mid-June. So he went off food for almost like 8 months, something like that. And it stressed me out so much. I was like, man, I just want to get him to eat, especially when it's an animal that's technically not yours.
Yep,
like,
I know the feeling. the ivory still still hasn't eaten since it's been here, but apparently he got the job done and I just missed it.
Hey, that's super nice too. I've caught locks with every single female that I plan to breed this year. I got visual locks, multiples of them, and the males pretty much stopped breeding with them. There's a couple females that I know are in their beginning stages of breeding, so he's been pairing up with them a lot. But all the other stuff, I started breeding season, I want to say it was like end of October, beginning of November when I started pairing stuff. And, the clown female, she went off food a couple months after breeding and then went into her, or I guess she stopped eating probably around January. So she bred for 2-3 months, stopped breeding. Everything else bred pretty similar, and they're still eating. So I'm like, all right, well, hurry it up. I'd love to see some eggs from every single one of you, and it'd just be nice. But at the same time, I'm grateful for what we get. So only a few show up, then a few show up. But I know as the years go by, more chances, more clutches, and I'm not trying to grow too fast, so I'm kind of happy at my steady rate right now.
Right, and I feel the same way. Like I want to add more stuff, but at the same time, I realize me adding, a male and a female ball python, or male and 2 or 3, that's going to turn into, I don't know, 15. Then I got to figure out which ones I want to keep, which ones, or if it's, depending on the project, I might have to keep all of them because I don't want to let them go.
Yep.
So it's sort of like I don't want to run into that issue, which is why I'm reluctant with the clown genetic stripe DG enhancer stuff right now. I want to make the stuff I initially focused on. So
more stuff you need to feed, and you just can't grow too quickly. I think a lot of people run into that issue where, they buy so many snakes really quickly. They're investing a lot, which it is really great. It is awesome to build, but I think at the same time people build too quickly, because then once you get 15, 20 snakes and you have to feed 15, 20 snakes, it might not be big enough to warrant breeding rodents, or you might not have the space. It gets expensive to feed stuff like that. And when you're feeding it on a basis of getting it up to breeding size versus, they're already adults where they're just kind of maintain feeding, you're not really bulking them up like crazy, but the younger stuff you definitely are. And I just think that's where a lot of people run into, is they just grow too fast. And so you got to understand your limits. You got to understand your space, what you can afford, your financials, what you can take care of. A lot of that goes into the more animals you get, the more electricity you're using, it affects things there. And I think a lot of people don't factor in all those little things, that you jump from 0 to 100. And the next thing you know, you go, holy crap, I have more expenses than I am producing stuff at the first little bit. Cause it takes time to produce stuff. You're not buying a ton of animals and then pairing them up and then getting eggs right away. It's just not how it works. Sometimes it does.
Yeah, it's not overnight.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. It takes time to get to know the animals, to understand the animals, to see the signs you're looking for.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for tuning in.
The breeding activity that you want, retic things. Yeah, that's definitely a project when you're working with retics. But yeah, I think that's where a lot of people run into their issue, and then you see them pop in for a couple of years and they go, holy smokes, we can't afford this. And then they pop out, and it's unfortunate. But that's where everybody really needs to understand, is know your limits. And then at that point, I think you're going to see a lot more success than you are not success.
Right. Last year it wasn't intended, because I bought the normal, now 100% hep hide. I bought it as a male. It was bigger and starting to act like a female. So I just threw my male in. So I was a year ahead of, everything planned. But it was nice to get that first clutch under my belt. And then this season, shooting for 5, hoping for 4, because the one reabsorbed. Maybe I'll get another one towards the end, but that one can wait. And then my buddy's we got another joint project up there it's going to be, it's a super it's my male clown, possible blade, possible het hypo to his super enchi albino. So we're going to make an enchi double het. So, and I'm letting him, he can deal with that project, and, in 3, however long it takes. He produces something, maybe I'll take it, because double visuals are always nice, especially if it's like a super.
Never go wrong with it.
He had something really nice. Okay, that's my payment for you being able to use that snake. So
yeah, it's definitely interesting. But it's fun working those collabs. It's fun working those projects. It's fun working stuff that you're helping each other grow. Even if it's not something that you're heavily into, but if it produces something and that's something you want to see and you want to work, the possibility is there. And so it's fun doing those collabs. I definitely recommend you do it with people that you trust, the people that their collections.
Yep.
And a lot of things go wrong when it comes to breeding collabs and breeding projects. And, both parties need to understand that crazy things happen, and we can't plan for really anything when it comes to these animals. I don't know how many I've had as far as green tree pythons, and not so much ball pythons, other boreal species. They're very special animals. Sometimes they just drop. You're feeding them 3 days later, they're dead on the ground. What the heck is that? And so you don't really deal with that a whole lot of python, but sometimes you do. There are people that will just come in and all of a sudden, boom, one of your babies dies and it's just dead. It was doing fine, ate, something like that. A lot of things like that happen too. So just kind of got to be prepared for all of it. But then you always want to hope for the success. But definitely when it comes to breeding projects, I don't recommend you just jump out with anybody and say, oh, hey, yeah, we just met and we're going to do a project together. I wouldn't do that. That's how you lose friendships, because crap happens and you got to understand it. And most of the time, people that are doing breeding projects, they've been breeding for many years, so they understand a lot of the risks that go in, but you just do it with people that you trust. I do projects with Dylan all the time and it's awesome. And, I'm looking forward to doing more with him and Angel. But I've seen both of their collections. They've been in my collection. They've seen my process. I've seen theirs. And, it's something that we built that trust over time. And we've benefited from it. We've all benefited from our little friendship, and we've done shows together and stuff like that. So definitely some great people. And that's what you need to do, is surround yourself with some really great people that are going to support you and build you up, and vice versa. You got to do the same. You got to pitch in the effort and sharing posts and doing things like that, just helping people out and supporting your circle. That's really what it's all about. And eventually you guys will grow together, and then awesome things happen when you start working cool projects and things like that. So I definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
So before we get over to the contract
Which
talk,
are you talking ball pythons? I imagine you're probably talking tree pythons, but could be.
It'll be a good segue. We'll talk about ball pythons and then switch over.
Yeah, as far as when it comes to like introducing ball pythons, so I really don't mess with a whole lot as far as cycling them. My room kind of cycles as far as my temperatures will fluctuate. But when your female's sitting on the cool side and she's bull wrapping and she's doing all those good signs that you want to see, they can kind of thermoregulate themselves to a degree. And so when it comes to the ball pythons, I don't really mess with a lot of temps, and very similar with the green tree pythons. If I see signs that they potentially are building follicles, then I'm introducing animals. The green tree pythons, I do a bit of cycling when it comes to them. Mainly just because it helps motivate them a little bit, but it's also timing. I've never had much success breeding green tree pythons during the winter. I don't know why. I mean, my first clutch of them that I got in 2018, she laid in February, but they were all slugs. So I didn't have the best bet when I was doing stuff during the wintertime. I noticed, at least where I'm located, my best breeding season is during the spring and summer when it comes to the green tree pythons. So it's also really understanding your animals, knowing what you're looking for, knowing the signs you're looking for. Ball pythons, they're going to be bull wrapping, rolling their bellies, and kind of sitting awkward when they're hanging out more on the cool side. The same thing with pythons. They go away from the heat panel. They're going to the cool side when it comes to breeding. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Is once they start changing behavior, that's when you kind of go, okay, hey, what's going on? What are we doing? What do we got working? And if it's something that you like to see, then you're pairing things up. And if it's lining up to kind of what you're hoping it is, then absolutely. But I think it's just really understanding and knowing your animals and knowing the signs that you're looking for. But I'll dig more into the green tree pythons in a minute.
Yeah. And as far as incubation goes, once you get your incubators, do a test run. Turn that thing on. Make sure get a dummy.
Let it run for months.
Egg box, and make sure your parameters are set for when you flip that thing on when you actually have eggs. Is the last thing you want is to get a heat spike or something like that, and then get something to remotely monitor the temperatures and humidity in there.
Yep.
But that's.
No, I mean, my incubator that I have now, this is the first season I'm going to be running with it, and I think I got it. I want to say back in like January and maybe February. So it's just been running. Right after I gutted it and got it set up, I've just let it run the entire time. I haven't turned it off. mainly because I want to monitor that. I want to monitor
Right.
those temperatures. I want to see, am I going to get a spike randomly after a month or 2 months? And so far, it's been really consistent since day one. So I'm really excited to get some eggs in there. I'm nervous that the first clutch going in is some double head puzzle clowns that I'm really geeked about. And now I'm like, okay, please don't have anything go wrong. But I'm very confident in it. I know, it's very similar to the way I had it, my other one set up, and the temperatures that I'm seeing. It's just everything that I want to see. So I feel comfortable using it. I feel confident in it. And if something goes south, then it goes south. It wasn't meant to be, but hopefully get it fixed and try
So,
again next year at worst case.
so something that I just thought of for, maybe you can't, and I don't know how long these things last. If you can't afford like the Govee stuff or something like that, for for shipping, they have a little, like a thermometer gauge thing that runs on like a ticker tape to show
Oh,
you your fluctuations in temp. So if you have something that's supposed to be frozen or refrigerated, and it'll show you any spikes, how long, the duration of the spikes, things like that. So that you might be able to grab one of those when you're trying out your incubator, slap that in there, let it go for a while, and see if there's any, what your fluctuations are, how high they go, how long they go, that type of thing.
another cool trick with shipping too. I've seen a lot of people who start using those ZoomEd, the little yellow digital thermometers. I see them pop the probe in the container or the bag with the snake, and it comes out of the styrofoam and it's just sitting on the top. So when you open up the lid, you can see what temperature it is inside.
That's cool.
I think that's a really neat trick. I think I'll probably start doing that. Is start shipping them out like that, so that way you can kind of see what the temperature is inside as soon as you open the box, and that'll hopefully tell you a lot too if your temperature is really cold or really low. It also kind of helps you understand the shipping process and what the temperatures are to expect.
Right.
I think that's a really neat feature, to be able to put temperature things in there, to be able to monitor that. I think is really cool, and I think it's beneficial for the animals and beneficial for us as keepers that ship these animals. If you know your animal's showing up and it's sitting around 80 degrees, something like that, you'd want to know that thing's showing up in a good condition. If it's showing up really cold, what do I need to do to fix the shipping? What can I do? Do I need to maybe pop 1 or 2 air holes versus 4 that you did before? Things like that. I think a lot of these cool new tricks and new things that are coming out really help and benefit a lot of it. And I think it just really helps and teaches us as keepers and breeders to help make sure our process is as best as it possibly can be. If we're shipping animals, we want to make sure they're showing up comfortable. Nobody wants a DOA. If it's getting stuck for a day or two in Memphis on some of those cases, like
I was scared on
that's going to be okay.
Wednesday morning. It's like, oh, good, it left Memphis. Thank God.
No, it gets stressful when it comes to shipping animals. I hate it. You love it because something's going to someone that's excited to have that animal, and you're excited to share something with that person. But it is so stressful, man. You don't sleep when you get something shipped in. You don't sleep anytime something's going through Memphis. I don't sleep. I'm watching the FedEx thing like every 10 minutes. I'm just refreshing it, going, okay, please leave Memphis. Please leave Memphis. Like if it leaves Memphis, I know I'm doing okay. I've never really had issues in Indiana or anything like that, but when it comes to Memphis, that's a very interesting hub. That's for sure. So many packages go through there, and I had a package go through there on Wednesday or Tuesday night, and I was stressing. I was like, please just go through. Please don't have anything happen. And luckily everything went well, but I knew on Wednesday multiple people had shipments get stuck in Memphis. I knew quite a few people, and I was very grateful that mine wasn't. It was green tree python, so I was really anxious to have it get here, and I was super nervous because anytime you ship something like that, you're always excited, but yeah, you're always nervous at the same time. Stressful.
Yeah. And another thing about, if you have a better idea of what the temperature of the actual animal is when it's shipped to you, you know how to treat it once you get it back. So if it's 70 degrees or something like that, if it's rather cool, you'll want to let it acclimate to like room temperature before you put it in your quarantine with it, normal parameters. Just let it.
You never want to chuck a snake back into a hot environment. It just causes a lot of unneeded stress on them, and most of the time they're
already
running
stressed.
to get away from the heat, and they've already just gone through this massive change, and nobody likes to be outside when it's 100. Okay, well, I take that back, because in the summertime when it's 100 degrees and you walk into an air conditioned house, you feel pretty damn good. But when it comes to the snake side of things, when you're freezing cold and you walk into a super hot room, you immediately are sweating because you got all this bundled up stuff. And remember, it takes time, especially with reptiles. They take a lot of time to warm up to room temperature, especially if they're showing up cool. Just letting them hang out. I usually open the box and I leave the box open, typically in the kitchen on the counter for an hour. Let them kind of get to room temperature. They're moving around. I'll open the bag first, make sure they're alive, make sure they're moving. But then I just kind of let them sit there and I let them just get adjusted to that temperature. And then once they're kind of moving around, really curious because they smell everything, that's when I'm taking them out. And then even then, most of the time the cages are about 80 degrees when they come in. And then I keep it there for about a day. And then after that day, the following morning, I'll sit there and pop the temperature up to where I normally want it to be. And then they're good to go. But I want them to slowly warm up. I remember Billy Mutation Creation had something where he had a couple boxes or a massive box of shipment of ball pythons come in. I think it was in like 2021, and they were stuck somewhere at the airport where they were basically outside. So some of them showed up frozen, but they were immediately throwing them into the incubator. And then they're like, wait, no, don't do that. You gotta and so it was kind of cool because they kind of shared a lot of tips and tricks as far as warming them back up. You want to do it slowly. You can't put them into shock even more. They're already shocked as it is to be cold. And then it's like dropping something from cold water to hot water, and it usually doesn't do very good. It takes some time to adjust for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like when I get that, depending on the time of year, when it's cooler outside, if it does get delayed, since it's delayed, I'm already on the phone with whoever I'm getting it from. Like, hey, I'm going to open it the second I get it. So I'm in the parking lot. It's like, okay, everything's good. They're alive. Nothing catastrophic. And then, boxes open. Try to keep them, if it is spring when it's a little cooler, I try to keep the heat in my truck not blasting hot air on them. Type of thing. So they'll be in like the back of the cab, just making sure they can't get out because that would stink.
Never want to get away.
Okay, let's switch over to the green tree python stuff. I'm a real noob. I had to ask for some help with some questions.
No, that's totally fine. A lot of people are kind of new to it. I mean, it's a super interesting species that so many people are fascinated by. Myself included. Justin, hey, thanks, bro. They're a very fascinating species. When you have something that can be so many different colors and still have those beautiful dragon faces with the heat pits and everything. I mean, everything about them is just fascinating. And so I definitely get it. It's one of those species. And then unfortunately, when you go on Google and you start researching, how do you take care of a green tree python? Man, it tells you everything not to do. And it's so frustrating because there's so much bad information that they think, oh, this is the correct way to do it. I mean, yes, there are many different ways you can do it. And can you do it in a glass enclosure? 100%. Is it the best thing? Probably not. When you're doing bioactive for them, is it the best thing? Yes, it looks awesome. But to really have a true bioactive enclosure, you need significant space for it. That's not something that you can control in a 2x2 cube. That's not something, I mean, you can maybe on a minor scale of it, but if you're going full-fledged and you have plants and you're having all these different things, you got to have plenty of space. You need to have the airflow. You can't have all this stagnant wetness inside their cages. They do not do well with that. So I mean, it is possible. I have seen people do it, and it is awesome. But when you go to the zoo and you see a bioactive cage, the thing's freaking massive. That's not something that you typically will have in your house. You're not going to have one for each green tree python, unless maybe you have one, maybe two. But once you start getting 4, 5, 6, those really aren't logical options for it. It depends if you're keeping, if you're breeding, if you're doing kind of different things. But I know plenty of keepers that don't breed that have 20 green tree pythons and they just love them. They love to have awesome, beautiful animals. But yeah, so I guess I'll kind of let you get started. What kind of questions did you come up
Right.
with?
So, I mean, you already covered the setup. So you're looking at something that's going to be taller, more so than it is, short and wide. So, a normal aquarium type setup won't really work. So you're looking for like the, what people have is crested geckos in, and then up to something that's massive.
You can. For me personally, I prefer long than I do tall.
Okay.
When it comes to the way I keep them, I think shorter, longer is better. I think a lot of breeders are kind of moving that direction where the cages, instead of, 24 inches high, they're going down to 20 inches high, but they're going 3 feet long. Yes, they can go up and down, but when you have a 3 foot tall cage and you have your heat panel sitting up here and your probes a couple inches below that, where the top perch is, 5 inches, whatever, wherever you kind of place it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now drop down 2 feet. What's the temperature going to be like down there? Typically, it's not going to be sitting at 80 degrees. Usually, it's significantly cooler the further you're getting away from the heat. So I think once you have those really tall cages, you have a different battle that you're taking when you're going that route. I think you have to supplement more heating down below too. Not a lot, but enough to where you're keeping those. You don't want to have massive temperature spikes in between your cages.
Right.
You don't want to
That makes sense. Because in nature, they're going to be picking food out of wherever they're perched for the most part.
Well, and most of the time they're down along the bottom, hunting along the floor. When you see the videos and pictures of them in the wild, they're wrapped around branches and they're hanging along the stem of that branch, and they just have down in that S position, and they're watching, a foot and a half off the floor, waiting for the movement, sometimes closer. And then when they're up in the trees and they're hanging out away from stuff during the daytime, they're just hiding in foliage. They're tucked away. They don't want to be seen. They got predators that'll come and grab them and eat them. And so, it turns into survival mode all the time. But yeah, for me personally, I definitely prefer shorter but longer. That just seems to be what works for my animals, and they're super active all the time. And I see them going back and forth, back and forth. Would they go up and down? 100%. But for the way I keep them and the way I have my stuff set up, it's easier and better for me just to go a little bit longer and just a tad bit shorter, because then when you're at 20 inches tall and you have your heat panel, your bottom cage temperatures aren't going to be significantly cooler. They will be cooler, which is what you want. You want to have space for them to get away from the direct heat. But at the same time, you don't want that space to be super, super cold. They're a very sensitive species when it comes to temperatures. They can handle temperature drops and they can handle a lot of those things, but they can't handle drastic stuff, and they can't handle drastic all the time. Eventually you'll start.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just because how you explain the activity that they're taking, and the gradient where now we're talking about here, where it's not as cool as it would be if it was down here where the bottom is. So I mean, and
there are some awesome enclosures that are tall. I am not knocking people that have those.
Right.
It's definitely possible if you have the space and you can maybe supplement, not necessarily like an under tank heat pad, but maybe something that's one of those attached to the side. You have an extra bit of heat tape. You got some 12-inch heat tape that you have not on the bottom, but maybe close to the bottom, just where it's kind of adding a little bit of supplemented heat to keep the gradients kind of where you want them. It's definitely possible. It's just not something that I do, but I don't knock it. I love people that do it. If you have the space to do it, fantastic. I'm terrible with names, so I know I'm gonna totally butcher it, but there's a guy down in, I want to say, Louisiana, and now I, for whatever reason, can't remember his name, but he has awesome enclosures where they're 3 feet long and like 2 feet tall, I want to say. And so they're nice, but they're longer. They're not taller. He went longer. And I noticed Dave D, when he's chatted on some of the podcasts that he's done, that he's been moving to 20 inches high, 30 inches long, maybe 24, 30. But it just seems like more people are moving that direction of longer is better. And it's easier to kind of keep those temperature gradients when you're going like that. I just think it's also just better for the animals. They're going to be Marshall Mendez. Yep. I mean, Marshall's a great person. He's been keeping and breeding for many years, so many species. really an awesome guy to learn from. Just incredible animals too. But I mean, same thing. I think he does a lot of the vision cages, which those ones I think are still a little bit longer than they are taller. And so, that just seems to be the direction a lot of people are going. But you're always going to have, different stuff that's going to fit and that's going to work and awesome. If it works for you, great. Keep doing it. Don't change it if it's working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So, with the animals themselves, are there different like locales like there are with boas,
Mm-hmm.
where we're looking? Okay, this one from this area is going to be slightly different than that one from that area, size-wise, maybe coloration, some things like that.
Definitely. So when it comes to, man, I should have grabbed a couple of my books, just because they have maps of Indonesia and stuff like that.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to run and grab something real quick. I'm going to make it a little bit easier.
He's going to the library. Yeah, what's good, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like this video, and share it out. And if you're not already following Tucker, all of his social media information and his morph market are in the description to this video. So go give him a follow. Check out his morph market. Did I screw that up? We'll get to that.
All right. So
I said before, I'm a total noob when it comes to these animals here. So we're gonna let Tucker school me in them. Well, I have some prepared questions.
Well, and that's awesome. I'm glad you actually do have some prepared questions because it's always fun answering questions. I love teaching people about these. So this book, Green Tree Pythons, Justin Juliander and Terry Phillip. Awesome book. One of the kind of more recent information on learning about green tree pythons. The other books that I would recommend are The Complete Chondro and The More Complete Chondro. Very, very similar books. They're just two different editions. Fantastic information. You're going to learn quite a bit. I don't know if people are going to really be able to see the names, but that kind of shows a lot of the cities, the main cities where you typically will find green tree pythons. I don't know. This camera thing's going to irritate me. But it just kind of shows a lot of the different areas. You can see the Biak Island, Manakori, Sarong, and then I want to say Maruki's down in the bottom, Jayapura, Luray up in the top, I guess in the middle top. So, I mean, and then you got Aru Island down there. So there's probably thousands of islands in Indonesia, and probably every single one of them has green tree pythons. That's just kind of where they're from. Animals get collected in different areas. They travel on cars. When they get bagged, if they get loose from a bag and they're in somewhere else, they're going to transfer and they're going to move around. And when the temperatures and things like that are pretty interesting, I'll show you. But yeah, it's really cool. There are a lot of different, I guess, subspecies of green tree pythons. Just recently, I guess not recently, everything's recent, but it's always been a couple years whenever I say that. There's a new scientific breakdown when it comes to green tree pythons. And I don't know every single breakdown. I've looked at the picture a handful of times and I share it around with people. Anytime someone has questions, I'll typically send it to them so they can kind of look at it too. But you have, I'm going to totally butcher this. So if you guys laugh, I don't care. So you have Morelia azurea, which I believe is Biak. And then you're going to have Morelia viridis, which is Aru typically. I think Aru, Maruki are kind of down in those lines. I'd have to look at the picture, so I'm probably messing that up. So I apologize. I'm not a professional. I just love these animals. So, and then you're going to have Morelia azurea uterensis. And those are going to be part of my favorites, Jayapuras, Cyclops, Lurays. I know there's a couple other ones that I'm forgetting. I think Tamika might be in that one, or Tamika might be Poulter. And then you have, I can't remember that one. It's Morelia Poulter. So I know that one is going to be Sarong, Manakori, and Arfak, I want to say, is part of the Poulter. So there are definitely some different subcategories that kind of break down species. Basically, it just says those are the most similar species together. They have a lot of the similar characteristics. They essentially scientifically are the same thing. Now we know from keeping and breeding and doing things like that, that you can look at a Jayapura and you can look at a Cyclops, and yes, they look the same on some cases, but then you have vast differences in other cases. Same thing with Manicoris, Sarongs, things like that, Arfac. We don't see a whole lot of Arfac anymore. There are still some people breeding it, but that's a really cool locality. I'd love to see some more pure stuff from that. I think someone did hatch a pure clutch of Arfax this year. It was Gary Chavino and somebody else. I think it was his male and someone's female. So that's really exciting. I might have messed that one up too, but do some more research before I jump on lives, because I know certain questions are probably going to require it. And granted, I learned a lot of them, but then I quickly move on from it, and so I just kind of go to the next thing, and then I'm like, oh shoot, yep, I know I read about that, or I know I saw that, but I always kind of forget.
I'm starting to understand what Chuck was talking about you Congo people.
There's a lot. There's so much information. There's so many things when it comes to lineages and stuff like that, and then different localities, understanding those localities. That I can't remember how to pronounce it, but that is a very rare locality. I believe they're actually on the opposite side of the island that you can actually import from, is I want to say where they're located, maybe not. But someone got a female into the US years ago and it produced babies this year. And I know somebody that's got one of those Neos, and a few of them have been available. And it's cool to see new things showing up in the green tree pythons, because more often than not, we're excited to see what the next blue line breeder is doing. What's Dave D producing? What's John Irby producing? What's Bill Stiegel producing? And you see all the crazy stuff that they're making, and you go, I want that. And there's some other fantastic breeders too. But, that's what we get so excited about. In ball pythons, it's okay, what's the new morph that's coming out? What's somebody working that nobody's seen?
Right.
So now it's kind of exciting for the green tree python people, because, boom, we got a locality that really nobody has seen and nobody has bred and nobody's produced from. We don't know what it's going to do with this and this and this. And so to kind of see things like that, it's really fantastic. It's exciting for the hobby itself. It's exciting for everybody and all reptiles, just to see new things constantly building and growing. That's what kind of helps an industry, is you want to see it grow. You want to see new possibilities show up. That's what helps pop the new influences of different things, and what re-sparks that fire that's inside all of us when we're keeping reptiles. We love to see the new stuff, but then we also love to see the current stuff. But then when you mix it with all these different things, oh, what is this and this and this going to make? It's fun. Same with green tree pythons. You breed a Biak to an Aru, you can make some pretty funky stuff. You can make some really cool stuff. And then you breed, you can breed Cyclops and Sarong, and you can produce some beautiful blue animals with some nice dorsals and maybe some really blue shading. And then you tap into the designer stuff, and you're breeding something that's potentially got melanistic in it. And then you're producing babies that have black spots all over it, and high blue or high yellow stuff, Biaks with high yellow. I mean, almost anything crossed with a Biak that's designer ends up producing something really awesome. So, Biaks are needed in almost every collection. You got to have one. They are really a cornerstone animal.
You mentioned melanistic. Are there any other, to compare to ball pythons, like morphs, outside of the different colors that come from locales?
Yeah, so when it comes to designer green tree pythons, they're all polygenic. So you're going to have 15 siblings, but they're all going to be completely different. You're never going to hatch a green tree python that's going to be the same. No matter if they're siblings and you do it all the time, you never hit the same stuff. You might hit stuff that's super similar, but they might have a couple white speckles that this one doesn't, or there's always going to be something different about them. When it comes to the designer stuff, a lot of how it came to pass is that they bred a pairing together. You produce something that is expressing high black. Maybe you produce something else that's expressing a little bit of black. Now you're breeding that together. Or you have a different pairing that's producing a little bit of melanistic, and you breed those things together. Then you're line breeding. And that's what's really enforcing and enhancing a lot of these different colors and patterns that you see, is they've been line bred for many, many years. A lot of the designer stuff, if you look at a pedigree, most of the time, it doesn't just go back 3, 4, 5 pairings. These things go back to 1970s where the original this and this was imported by the zoo, bred, and then produced this, and then this was bred to this. And, so when it comes to a lot of the designer stuff, I wouldn't necessarily say they're morphs. We do have albinoism in chondros. Marshall Mendez has been working that for many, many years, and he has produced albino chondros. So I know that's definitely a morph. I want to say Buddy Buscemi, I think, produced a hypo green tree python. I'm almost positive he did back in 2020. Whether that thing survived, I don't know. But as a neo, it had no black pigmentation. It was really, really cool. It's something that you don't see very often. I think he repeated that pairing, and I don't know if he hit anything more from it. I haven't seen him post about it. But those are really, I think, the two main morphs that I would consider morphs. Is if you have hypomelanistic and you can produce it and reproduce it, great. But when it comes to those, just because you have something that's het albino and then you breed it to something that maybe else is het albino does not guarantee that you're going to make albino. It just doesn't work that way. You can have 15 babies. I mean, look at Marshall. He has hatched albinos and he does have stuff that is siblings to albinos, but then he might hit one out of so many eggs. So I don't even know if I would consider them morphs because it's not going to be guaranteed. Hey, if you breed this with that's het albino to this that's het albino, you're going to make 25% albinos, kind of like where it comes to ball pythons. It just doesn't work that way.
It's more of a luck of the draw. It's like you might get it, might not. All right. Okay, that makes sense.
And so those would definitely be my two main ones. I'm sure there might be something I'm forgetting, but when you see the designer blue line stuff that shows these incredibly blue animals, but then you can produce some insanely high yellow animals from these blue line pairings. So that's the interesting stuff with green tree pythons. You never know what you're going to make. You could breed the most common. Shoot, I did it in 2021. I bred a Jayapura male, looked very cyclopsy. He actually looked like the very first cyclops I ever bought, but he was labeled as a Jayapura. And then I have a female that when I purchased her, he didn't know what she was, but I was able to track down the pet store she came from, mainly because I knew the owners from it. So it was easy to kind of figure out, hey, what was she imported in as? Like, what did you get her as? And so she was labeled as a Jayapura. Who knows? When it comes to imports, you really are just kind of going on what's labeled. But neither of them had any type of melanistic in them. And I produced 13 babies. I had 12 eggs and I hatched twins. And that was pretty awesome. They only made it a few months. But the two holdbacks that I had and one that I sold to Sterling, actually, so the red Neos, all three of them have expressed a little bit of melanism. One of them's got a little bit along the dorsal, kind of a dirty look to it. The one from Sterling has a little bit of a dirtiness to it and a few black melanistic spots on it. And these are two plain green parents. And I guess they weren't plain green. The mom is very, very blue. Mm-hmm. She was blue before I got her. And then after she laid, she didn't really gain more blue. She just stayed beautifully blue. And she's in shed right now. Otherwise, I'd pull her out. It's kind of a bummer because she was just coming out of shed. I was hoping it would happen tonight or last night, but it didn't. But, that's the interesting thing. When you breed an Aru, typically they are nice and blue, maybe some white in them. Some of them are high whites when it comes to the imports. And you breed it to a green Biak. And then all of a sudden you're producing some animals that are crazy melanistic or they're high yellow or, vice versa. Manicory Biaks can produce some really nice tricolor things. So that's the exciting thing when it comes to them is you really have no idea what you're going to produce. And to me, that's why it's so important that breeders hoard and hold them back. You kind of want to see them change because if it's changing into something that you want it to change into, man, nothing hurts more than seeing someone else have your animal that turned the way you wanted it to turn out. But it's at the same time, it's also exciting because, it's exciting for that person. It's exciting for them to have an animal that is just remarkable that you drool over, someone that produced it and you're drooling over your own animal, that it's also exciting and happy for them. So at the same time, you want to be happy and excited for them. But inside, you're always like, damn, I wish I could get that back, Yep. I'm talking about you, Sterling. It's frustrating, but at the same time, like you want everybody to experience these species. I mean, they're so much fun. They are so rewarding. Even if you're just keeping them, God, they are just beautiful. They're fantastic. The way they sit all day while they're perched up, to see them active at night, watching them drink, watching them eat, everything about them is fascinating. And if you're not fascinated by what you're working with, you're working with the wrong stuff. I love these things. I mean, any day they just look beautiful. It could be the plain green, nothing exciting, and I just love it. There's just everything about them is just so unique, and how every single one's different. It's a lot of fun, and it's definitely good species. Everybody deserves to have one. Yeah, they're not as hard to keep as everyone says they are. They're really not. You can keep them pretty simple, and they do fantastic. They thrive. We use tubs for a lot of things. I use tubs for a lot of mine. Some of them I have in PVC cages. Some of them I have in tub rack systems that I built. And the ones that are in the tub rack systems have been in there for many years. They do fantastic. They thrive in those things. They eat, they shed, they poop. They do everything you want them to do.
Yep.
And easy to maintain temperature, humidity, and all that fun stuff. And you just give them options, and they're always active at night. I try to interact with them as much as I can. Some of the adults I really don't mess with a whole lot anymore. I'll pull them out maybe to get a picture of them when I'm cleaning. But I guess the younger stuff is really what I tend to play with a little bit more. A lot of the adults, I like to just leave them alone, mainly because I want to breed them. And I don't want them to be stressed by handling and messing with them. And, if I have something that I'm working on, then I definitely don't want to mess with them. But the younger stuff, man, they're years away from breeding. So I'll poke and prod at them all the time. Not all the time, but almost like once a week, I'm sitting there playing with them because I just love them. They're just a lot of fun, and I like to interact with them. And it's a great species. They really are rewarding.
All right. So I have some questions regarding breeding. So how long between Sally, get down. Sorry, my dog is annoying me. So how long does it take to grow a unit up to breeding size?
So a lot of people used to do about 4 years. They would say a female's ready to go. Me personally, I think 5 years is where you're starting to see more success. I think you're setting yourself up for more success when it comes to the 5-year mark. The animal's more mature. Second, it's got another year of growing and getting fat reserves, calcium stuff that it's going to need to produce these eggs and produce the follicles and to shell the eggs properly. I don't know. To me, it's more of a waiting game. When it comes to ball pythons, I've seen people breed ball pythons at like 18-month-old females, and they get eggs from them. And hey, cool, it worked for you. Some of the ball pythons, I still wait until they're like 3 years old. I really don't rush to build size on any of my animals. I slow grow a lot of my stuff. I prefer it to be more mature than I do the size. And so to me, a 5-year-old female is pretty prime. I think about 4.5. If they're in a pretty good condition, you could probably start cycling them about 4.5. And then by the time you're getting closer to that 5-year mark that they are, hopefully they've probably started breeding right before then, and maybe they're laying right after. So that'd probably be my mark. Would be 4.5 was when I would start cycling them.
Okay. And can you go into the process for what cycling is for them? Because for the most part, us ball python people don't really do that. We just sort of look in and okay, they're bull wrapping, let's go. It's about that time, October, something like that. But a lot of people are doing it year round. It all depends on, what if you have an ultrasound, you can just check and be like, okay.
Exactly. You're able to kind of peek and see, hey, my female's building follicles. She's at 25 millimeters. Toss the male in 20 millimeters, something like that. Right. When it comes to cycling green tree pythons, there's really two, I think, major methods that are being utilized the most, which would be A, temperature cycling, and then B is food cycling. When it comes to food cycling, which is the method that I use, is I basically take them off food and I don't feed them for 2.5, 3 months. Probably about the 3-month mark is usually what I shoot for. And so I take them off food for about 3 months. And then I start feeding them all, males and females, really small meals weekly. And basically what I'm enticing is hoping that the females are seeing these smaller meals more frequently. In their minds, they're going, okay, the food is abundant. There's something that I can produce. My babies will eat. There's food everywhere. This is the best time for me to be producing because the food is abundant. And so that's kind of the cycle that I do. Males, usually when females are building follicles, they'll go off food. And sometimes there's season males that always go off food October to February, and there are some males that never go off food. I don't have a lot of males that typically like to go off food. A lot of my stuff will just breed and eat, and I'm okay with it. If they're eating and they're producing healthy sperm, then fantastic, keep eating. I notice that my males typically go off food after the female or is really close to ovulation. That's when they are typically going off food. And it's weird because they're off food until eggs are laid. Sometimes eggs are hatched and then they go back on food. So my males like to do different things. I don't know if it's just because my area or what, but the food cycling is typically the method that I use. That's the method I use to get my healthy clutch in July of 2021. I have been cycling my animals recently, and I just started pairing up a sarong pair that's been breeding for the last week and a half. They were just locked up this morning too, actually. I snapped a picture of it. I don't post a lot of my breedings when I have stuff starting to breed, mainly because I don't jinx it. So I really don't post it anywhere until I start seeing, the signs that I'm looking for. I have a female that it's kind of interesting. When I started cycling her, she just blew up. She started building follicles like crazy, being off food. Yeah. And so she is still building, still very, very big. I have a male in with her, and I'm hoping that ends up panning out because that would be fun. It would be phenomenal. And then I have another female that I'm going to be working on more towards the middle of this summer. It's the same female that gave me a clutch in 21. Hey, Kino. And so I'm excited to get those going. But, right now, I'm at the end of my cycling, and boom, my sarongs are off to the races. So I'm hoping to produce a nice pair of pure sarongs this year. And we'll see what happens. I haven't quite decided what I want to do with the Jayapura female. I have a Jaya Cyclops male that I got from Kino, and beautiful boy. I would love to breed him. So we'll see. I might do something like that. I might do the sarong male with her, just to kind of throw something a little bit different. But, at the same time, you're also trying to find, when it comes to green tree pythons, a male and a female are not just going to breed. Sometimes they will. Sometimes you'll get lucky, you find a compatible pair. But there are plenty of times where your female does not want that male. And no matter what you do, she does not want him. And it gets really, really frustrating because you might have the best pairing ever planned out, and then nothing wants to work. The male sits on the ground the entire time, and he's like, nope, I want away from her. As soon as you put them together, the female's like, no, get me the heck out of here. There are certain pairings that definitely won't work. So my best advice, if you're breeding green tree pythons, you definitely want more males than you do females, because your females can be very, very picky. I have two beautiful Biak males. One of them's 8 years old and never been wanted. Oh, yeah. No. I love Kino. Kino's an awesome guy. He's fantastic. One of my best homies. And we talk multiple times a week. We're always on the phone. So we give each other a lot of shit. But when it comes to when it just comes to a lot of different things, like I have two Biak males. One of them's 8 years old. The other one's 4. And neither of them are interested in breeding. As soon as I try to put them in something, they immediately sit on the ground, or they just want the heck out. And the one that's about 8 years old, you would hope that, like, hey, come on, like at this point, I'd hope you want to breed almost anything. No, he just he enjoys just sitting in his cage and not breeding. So I have a couple of those when it comes to the greens that they just don't want to breed, and sometimes that happens. But then I have other males that are just go-getters. So if you have a breeding male, keep them, because they're very hard to come by. At least something that's going to be very consistent and is going to be after things. That's what you really, really want. And sometimes they just don't do what you want. So that's something that I think a lot of people aren't prepared for either, is they'll just buy a pair of green tree pythons and they go, hey, they're not breeding. What do I do? your pair might not like each other. And so you might
Find
need
another male.
3 males to 1 female, and maybe one of those 3 males will actually be able to do it. As far as having how many I have currently, Sterling, I think I'm at just 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, just 12. I used to have probably closer to 20. And then I did sell a couple females that I wasn't running that project. I sold a couple, sold some Aru stuff that I wasn't working with anymore. And just kind of moved from a couple directions that I didn't want to go. And then I ended up losing a couple males to a female. I had a really nasty BR girl, and paired a couple males with her, and she lit them up. And so, unfortunately, neither of them recovered from it. It was pretty sad. Paired them during the day, right at midday, sprayed everything down, watched them for like 20, 30 minutes. And yeah, she messed them up pretty good. So
Wow.
I did lose a couple really nice ones. One of them was the male that produced my clutch in 21. So I was really, really bummed. Not something that you like to experience, but lessons learned. Now when I pair stuff, I sit here for probably an hour and I just watch. I make sure nothing's touching each other. Luckily, I've never had a case like that, but she was just a very, very aggressive female, and she didn't like anything. She didn't like me. She didn't like the males. Anytime you walked into the room, almost instantly you walked past her, thud. She'd hit the glass, hit the tub, something.
Okay.
She was just not a good one. And so I didn't end up. So I ended up losing a couple really nice breeder males that I was really bummed about. So then I haven't really added a lot of new things. I did buy a new green tree python that got here on Wednesday. It was a sibling to the sickness. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that animal, but Bill Stiegel did 2 pairings, one in 2017 that produced the sickness, and then I believe one in 2018. And I have a male from the 2018 repeat pairing that just showed up. So that's pretty exciting. I have some other stuff. I'm always after males, it seems like. Like I said, I'd rather have way more males than females because some just won't do the job. And, you just never know when you add a female that might be right with that male. So I'm a hoarder too. I don't like to get rid of anything. Yeah, Sterling, I need to send you pictures of it. My bad. He showed up on Wednesday, and so he's just kind of been tucked away, letting him hang out, letting him do his thing. And
Acclimated.
Yep, and then hopefully, I don't know if I'll breed him next year, depending on kind of what happens this year. If my females, I don't breed green tree python females back to back. If they lay, I'll give them a year off. Okay. So if 1 or 2, or if I'm lucky enough, and maybe 3 of the females that I'm breeding decide to lay, I won't breed them next year. I'll give them the year off, and I'll let them kind of hang out, regrow, get back to a nice healthy size. I just don't really like to rush them. At the same time, like I don't really want my ears full of neo green tree pythons. Yeah, they're beautiful and everybody loves to see them, but they're not always the best eaters. Usually they never are. So it takes some significant time as far as establishing at least those first 5 or so meals are very, very crucial. You're spending a lot of time with them, and then once you're getting to 10 to 15 meals, it's definitely getting easier, but it still sometimes takes time. And then you're going to have the handful that just don't want to live. And so you're fighting to keep them alive, and you're fighting to make them want to live and to hopefully enjoy it where they want to live themselves, and then they start doing what you want them to do. So there's definitely going to be a percentage that's like that. And then you're going to have a percentage that's just off to the races. They're gung-ho. They're ready to rock. And those are your favorite ones because they'll eat from day one and they give you the least amount of problems. And then it's always rewarding when you get some difficult feeders and problem feeders to start eating again. But to be able to, I don't know, to have too many babies, it definitely sucks. I fear for, not fear, but I applaud Travis, Mongrel Reptiles. He hatched out 45 eggs last year.
Wow.
That's a lot of babies to establish in 1 year. You're getting towards the back end on one clutch, but you still have some difficult ones, and then you get hit with a new batch. And, I might be setting myself up for disaster this year by getting too many. I mean, I hope I have too many. I kind of want to have that problem, but then I also want a year to kind of recover from that problem.
Right.
I like vacations. I like going camping and going to visit people. And when you have them, you're not really leaving a whole lot. They need to stay very humid, and they're so tiny and so delicate. You really don't want to mess anything up. And so, yeah, when it comes to them, I hope this year is really big. But if I get 1 or 2 this year, that'd be phenomenal. If I got 1, I'd be grateful. And then maybe I'll try a couple of females next year with that designer male. I'd like to try to add some more stuff this year. Don't really buy a whole lot of green tree pythons anymore. I bought a ton back in like 2020, and then I've only added, I think, 2 since then. And one of them, he was produced from a sickness sib. So I have a brother to the sickness, or I guess it would be a brother, but a year younger. And then I have a nephew. So I have a couple animals from that bloodline that I'm super excited to work. And, the nephew, I'll pull him out. He's only 18 months old. So he's still really young. He's still got a long way to go. But, he's a month older than my 2 holdbacks that ended up being females. So he's kind of in line to pair up with them. And I really am excited about that. I have a cool female that I'm super excited about. She's expressing a lot of, I don't know if I'd call it melanism, because she is kind of melanistic, but then she's really dirty. So I'm like, what are you going to do? How are you going to look? Let's see if I'll probably pull her out real quick.
So
it's feeding day.
Normally I'm talking a lot more, but I'm just listening because this is, all new information.
I do. Once I get started on something, I just keep going and keep going.
I'm happy to not be talking, because I'm going to, have my voice after this. Sometimes when it's a lot more back and forth, or I go off on a rant for whatever reason or on a tangent, and get distracted, then it sort of, it takes away from the guest. So, I mean, this has been a lot. You inadvertently covered a lot of the questions that Chuck gave me to, sort of,
I do that sometimes. I just start rambling, and then I'll just go from one thing to the next, and then next thing you know, I kind of cover a lot of bases, and I don't do it on purpose, so I apologize if sometimes I talk.
I mean, hey, it's fine.
It happens. I love them, so it's easy for me to be pretty geeked about them.
And so, I mean, that sort of, the past, I guess, half hour or so sort of covered a lot of the questions that I had prepared. So it's nice to get some of that new information and new species that I don't deal with here.
I don't know how well you can see her. Actually, let me see if I can do this. So she is one that I produced back in 2021. So quote unquote Jaya to Jaya, both imports, so very well could be something else. But unfortunately, when it comes to green tree pythons, we really go with what they were labeled as. So this is one of the, I love their faces. Everything about their face is just awesome. Just little mini dragons. And
I see, for me, like some of my experience has been like they're little feisty all the time. You don't want to.
Oh yeah. No. See, when it comes to these ones, like I'm just basically just pulling her right off the perch, and then she's gonna fight it for a minute. But then once the tails are out, you never want to pull off the tails. But boom, just right off the perch. They're super friendly. I love them. They're the one species that you'd think would be the most aggressive ones. My green tree pythons are super, super friendly. I work with them a lot. I put a lot of time in with them. And so almost every single one of them I can kind of pull out like this, and they come pretty much off the perch pretty easily. So I don't know. I take just a lot of time working with them. They're just a fun species, and they just look so cool. Their patterns and everything. So that's one of the siblings. Yeah, as you can see, like she's not defensive at all. You can sit there and poke at her face. She's not going to do nothing.
Man, I get a boa that's a lot meaner.
Yeah, some of my ball pythons are way worse than my green tree pythons. It's
I mean, I guess it's just like you hear from like one person that had a bad experience, and then a couple more people, and then you sort of formulate an opinion about a species before you even have dealt with it yourself. Um,
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, there are plenty of green tree pythons that are just not. They hate people, and
and that's probably for me like why I would want like a more vertical enclosure, like maybe that has like two panes that I can open, so I can get in there and deal with the animal or deal with cleaning and whatnot, and not be reaching my hand in there to get tagged, type of thing. But
oh yeah, no, there's definitely a couple that will snag you if they want to. This is the other sibling that I produced.
ooh, I like the blues that I'm starting to that I can see.
Yeah, I tried to open up the window a little bit just to see at least the window light would shine on them a little bit better.
The colors on these are just like
Yeah, their eyes are pretty fantastic too, especially at this age. They're just a really cool, fun species. But she's got a little bit of kind of melanistic traits when it comes into her dorsal. It's really dirty looking. And yeah, no, Sterling, they both ended up being females. Super excited. So the first one that I showed you, I'm really excited for that one to pair up. Now, see, I say I'm excited for it, but it probably won't happen because knowing my luck, my males hate females. They just don't want to breed them. But I would love to breed the nephew that I have of the sickness line to the original, or that first female that I showed off. That's just a little bit more kind of melanistic and dirty looking, and that would be my ideal pairing for sure. But knowing my luck, they probably won't breed. So it's a good thing I got two sisters to hopefully better my odds. But as you can see, he just woke up out of his perch. He's just kind of waking up. But they're all super friendly, just sitting there rubbing on them. And they don't come flying out at me or anything. They just kind of check things out. They're more curious. But he's really cool. He's got some really cool colors. I love his nose. This guy was produced by Ryan Glenn down in Texas. Super awesome guy. He's got some good Neos available right now. So if you're looking for a nice quality designer, he's definitely a great guy to go through. The sibling to this one, he named it Night Child, and it looks sweet. One of the closest things I've seen when it comes to the sickness, and he produced a female sibling to this one. Looks phenomenal. And I know Bill Stiegel's produced some really nice stuff that's very similar with sickness, but to really get that true look, Ryan did produce one. So he named it Night Child. I named this one Day Child because he's the complete polar opposite. He's just nice and bright and pretty, but you know what? The genetics and pedigree is there, and hopefully bred to the right female. Should produce some really cool stuff. Like I said, I always just go from the bottom. I mess with their coils, get my fingers in between their coils, and then you can just kind of lift them right off the perch. And then once they're off the perch, it's just a lot easier to work with them. I won't pull him completely off because he's still got his tail down pretty good. I never like to pull them if they got their tails up, but you guys can kind of see his pattern a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, the colors of these things you can get, it's just like...
Yeah, they're definitely pretty epic. Definitely a really fun species. But those are my... some of my favorites, for sure. Mainly because, that's part of the future, part of the building blocks that hopefully one day will produce some really fantastic stuff.
I feel like we have like a 2 episodes in one. We had the ball python stuff earlier. Now we have the green tree python stuff. So
I know a lot of the green tree pythons went into shed. Oh, no. Some of them don't like to come out. like this Diak.
Hey, how's it going?
But then once they come out, they're usually typically pretty good. These are really pretty. High yellow Biak. I wouldn't say high yellow, but he's got a lot of really cool yellow on his face. And yeah, it's always the Biaks. But man, everything that I have is starting to go into shed, and it's so frustrating. Mainly because I just started feeding them again after food cycling everybody. So everybody got their first meal, and is all like, all right, I'm going to shed now and everything. So it becomes a pain. And then I have a couple pairs are together, so I won't mess with them too much. But live by gloves and hand sanitizer. It's just my.
Yeah, I have. I get the hand sanitizer right on my hatchling rack, just constantly. Never know what I touch. Don't want to, introduce something from one employee to another.
Never want to cross-contaminate anything. A lot of the stuff, like if I'm just touching a perch or something like that, and they're animals that I've worked with together, like the siblings, I keep a lot of their stuff separate, but just grabbing a perch, with the gloves usually isn't going to do a whole lot to you because you're not really touching anything. Now, if you touch urates or something like that, then I'm definitely changing glove. But, I'm working with babies first. Then I'm changing gloves, working with baby ball pythons next, changing gloves. Then I'm working with adult ball pythons, changing gloves. Then I clean the adult green tree pythons, cleaning, changing all those stuff. So I go through a certain process. Everything gets worked on in a certain order. And I've just kind of always done it that way, mainly to protect the babies from anything potentially the adults could have. The ball pythons are kind of all in their own similar area. The adult green tree pythons, everything's just got a process. I work with things the same way. I always go from baby green tree pythons to baby ball pythons to adult ball pythons to adult green tree pythons. And I always end my day working with the adult green tree pythons, and I always start my day working with the baby green tree pythons. And that's kind of the process that I work with. And I don't work with them every single day, but when I'm cleaning and doing stuff like that, even if one's poopy, I'll always work with that species first, and then it just goes through the order. Every single one has its process, and there might be some days where I come in, I'm going, okay, I'm only doing the adult ball pythons, cleaning everybody, doing everything with those. The next day, I'm probably working on something else. Very rarely am I working with every single thing all on the same day, unless I'm giving water.
Yeah, water seems to be the one constant where, okay, because usually, since the ambient temperature where everything is the same, water tends to, on the cooler side of everybody's enclosure and tends to evaporate at a similar rate. So if I'm doing the water for all the snakes, well, chances are the lizards are out too. So I'll do that. But, I definitely have my own sort of, okay, lizards are going to be this weekend. Snakes are going to be that weekend or that day. The aquarium is going to be its own, separate thing because that's just a pain in the butt to drain it and then fill it back up and all that stuff. But I do have like that Python hose, so I can hook it up to my sink, and it's pretty great. I don't have to siphon it anymore, so I can just.
That makes it a little bit easier.
yeah. So and then to fill it back up, I'm not using buckets anymore. So I mean that's nice. But the one thing I won't do on any day I do any of the reptile stuff is I won't clean the rodents.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
I learned. I just changed the water, and I washed my hands, and I must have still smelled, and everybody was all agitated at me. So I'm like, okay, separate days. If I have to be in that room and clean everything, I'm going to take a shower and then deal with everything else just to get that smell off me. But speaking of the rodents, I know we talked about this backstage, but do you breed your own, or do you have to go to an outside source to get yours?
So I do not breed my own. If I had the space, I 100% would. I think my collection's getting to a point where I would definitely benefit from breeding my own rodents. But as of right now, I mainly outsource them. So the two main sources that I get things from is a local breeder, Rosie. She's the one that produced the Banana Enchi Clown, or Dylan. more often than not, I'm getting a lot of my rodents from Dylan. Usually whenever we're hanging out, anytime I go up and see him, or if he's coming down in this area, usually I'm getting rodents. And then if I need anything really in the kind of the meantime in between things like that, I'll typically grab stuff from Rosie just because she's local. They both produce phenomenal rodents, and they do a great job with them, and they take care of them, and they're nice, healthy animals. And that's exactly what I want to feed to my animals. And, I've ordered from sources online and stuff like that. But for me, a 2.5 hour drive to go see Dylan, or a 15-minute, 20-minute drive to go see somebody else, it's a lot more convenient, a lot easier for me.
Right.
I mean, ordering online is super easy. You just click a couple clicks, you pay, and then it gets shipped to you, and it's awesome. But I don't know. I try to support local people as much as I can. You're supporting the local community, you're supporting your friends, and that's kind of the direction I like to go with a lot of things. Is I want to support the people that are helping support me. And that's the biggest thing. Rosie's got a lot of animals that I've produced, which is fantastic. And so I love seeing that. I love seeing those updates. And the people that invest in you, you want to invest back into them, and you want to show that appreciation. And even if they don't invest in you, you always want to give people the time of day, and just share the love.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be on top alone. So I'd rather be on top with 500 other people that have been with me along the journey, and now, hey, they're on top with me. That's a lot more exciting for me than trying to beat everybody else out. What's making you be number one if you're by yourself?
Right.
There's nothing number one about that. So I definitely like to support the people that definitely support you, and beyond. Just be supportive to everybody. That's what builds a community. That's what makes people want to help each other. That's what makes new people want to come in, is when they see a community that just takes people in with open arms and say, hey, I'll help you. I'll teach you. Back in the day, it definitely wasn't that way. Nobody wanted to help you.
So I've
Nobody
heard.
wanted to give information. And if you did something wrong, God, man, they wanted to hang you for it. It was awful. They just, people were not the same today as they were back in the day. Back in the day, it wasn't fun getting into new things. It wasn't fun getting into projects. Nobody wanted to help you. There would be a select few people that definitely want to help you. They definitely want to be there, but that was far and few between, compared to today's day and age, where, man, there's so many Discord channels, the Patreon stuff, where you can really get exclusive help with breeders. I mean, I'm not in any Patreons, but I definitely do see a benefit to a lot of that, to be able to get access to certain breeders. If that's something that you're really passionate and they're working something you're working, 100%, it's worth that investment, because you're gaining so much knowledge. Knowledge is, you can't put a price on knowledge.
Right.
Knowledge
and
about
access.
things. Yeah,
that's another thing.
Huge. And so maybe someday, when somebody has something that I'm really after, and a project that I'm really interested in, and they're working it, I might join Patreons and stuff like that. But right now, I'm just having fun doing what I'm doing. I love breeding the animals. I love producing the animals. And, by the end of the day, as long as I love it, that's all that matters to me. So I'm going to have fun regardless.
But I think, a lot of the things changed when this got to be more, social media happened, and this got to be more of a business aspect. Well, you can make money off of helping people. You're not going to make too much money if you're a
you're
to everybody and you're not helping. And it's like, I'm going to
run
all
people
this
away. They're just not going to come back to you.
So I can definitely see that change. And actually, it's a relief for when I came back in to the hobby. It was much more community based rather than I got to get this. I mean, we're all competing against each other, even the guys next door. Now it's like, okay, cool. Oh, you got something I want? Okay, I'm going to buy that. Maybe you'll buy something from me down the road, or something like that. It's like, I have no problem. If I have an animal for sale, I don't mind selling it to the guy that's going to be competing, for sales at a show, or in the local area.
That's where a lot of sales come from shows. It's you do get a lot of sales from people and things like that, and you meet new people, and then you start making connections. That side of the show is fantastic. Where most of your big dollar sales are coming from? All the other vendors. They're walking around.
Yeah,
I see that. I sold this and this. I want that. That's where a lot of the show purchases are happening. If you're a vendor, you got access to a little bit more, because more people are seeing that. They're seeing it behind the scenes. A lot of that nice stuff is getting sold before it even touches the show table. Someone sees you unpacking something. Hey, what's that? And next thing you know, it's gone. So that's where I feel like a lot of those sales come from, are definitely the other vendors, because everyone's there to make money. And when someone does pretty decent at a show and you make good money, well, guess what? You're going to want to spend that money because you want to come home with something too.
Yeah. Some of the Pennsylvania guys and I are in surrounding state areas are in a group chat, and we always, and one of us is always joking, we're always shipping money and snakes around to each other. Just kind of funny that, okay, I sold this snake, but I just bought one from this guy, and then he just bought one
Yep.
from that guy, and it's just constantly moving around. Or somebody, we're getting some of the ones that have been in there longer are upgrading their or have new breeders coming up, and they're getting out of some of the older ones. So for somebody like me, that's just okay. I can get that animal, and it's ready, and it's already going for me. I picked her up end of last year, I think, and hopefully she gives me some nice eggs end of May, beginning of June. So I mean, it's just kind of cool.
That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, just
that'd
quick
be exciting.
turnaround. Yeah, I do appreciate the community a lot. It's kind of like I never would have thought that I'd have like 2,000 followers on Instagram just posting fake content, and at this point, I'm just posting stuff that's related to the YouTube channel. So it's
just awesome to see that people want to support people that are doing things that they enjoy seeing and that they enjoy wanting to be a part of. I think it's phenomenal. It's so fantastic just to see so many of these big snake breeder accounts that have tens and 20, 30,000 followers, 100,000 followers, millions of followers on some, just to see people that are that interested in reptiles. There's always hope for it. There's so many people that are really involved in this community, and we meet a small fraction of them. In every state, there's hundreds of thousands of people that breed snakes, and you probably know 15 to 20 people.
right.
There's the community is so much bigger than we realize it is. So people get so nervous about the market, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe 15, 20 people that might be struggling with a couple things, but then where's everybody else doing? Everybody,
Right.
You're still seeing things being moved. You're still seeing things being shipped. I think the market, any business, you take a convenience store, for example, every year is going to be different. You're going to have busy years. You're going to have really good years where you make a lot of money, and then maybe the next year you make half of that, and then the following year you do better again, but not as great as 3 years ago. It's the same thing when it comes to reptiles. There's going to be spikes. There's going to be years where it's really good sales. Money's been really good with people. People have been able to save, do things like that. This year, I feel like so much spending happened in the last couple of years that now people really aren't after the spending portion of it. They want to see
Right.
what they bought produce. They want to produce.
Right. You have a bunch of people that were buying heavily.
So you're going to have a year or two gap where more people are going to be looking at producing, but then at the same time, they're saving that money. They're waiting. Something gets produced. Boom, it sells. I mean, every year is going to be different when it comes to sales. You never want to take away from what you're doing. But at the same time, you do need to follow the market. You do need to understand if you want to do this in a business aspect. I am not in this for the business side of it. I'm not trying to make money and get rich from this stuff. I'm just trying to produce some really cool stuff that I can hold back and keep. And if someone wants to buy something I make, awesome. I hope to sell you something that's really great. But at the same time, I'm also following the market. I'm into the puzzle project of things. I'm into other morphs and genes that will kind of help enhance and work on that kind of stuff. When it comes to the green tree pythons, I've invested a little bit more into the designer side of things. Mainly because I just had a lot of locality stuff, and I love the locality stuff. I'm still breeding it. I'm still working it. But at the same time, I want to produce a freaking blue snake. I want to make something really badass and cool. So, you do need to invest into certain projects to kind of help reach certain goals. And I don't know, just be passionate about it. As long as you love what you're doing, it's always going to be successful. I mean, that's the biggest thing. If you're enjoying this, you're always successful. Every day successful, because guess what? You walk into a room and you got beautiful animals. What can be better than that? Aside from having family, I love my family. I love my kids. They're fantastic. But I love all my kids. I enjoy taking care of all of it. And, for me, I'm just having fun with it. That's what it's all about.
And, for me, like I'm looking up at the timer that's up on the corner of the screen for me, and we've gone over the 2-hour mark, and it's like, wow, now I understand. Well, when Tucker was talking about chondros, I was just kind of sitting there like, Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll rant. I can kind of go on and on for sure.
But for me, it's like I had like the list of questions because my knowledge prior was very limited and sort of, you know, they're not like ball pythons where I can just sort of conversationally get through something like that. So normally I'm talking a lot more and interacting a lot more, but really, I had the questions prepared, and Tucker answered a lot of them when he was talking. So it was me just shaking my head and then looking at snakes. So, I mean,
is there anything that you have on your list that maybe I didn't cover that I can touch base on real fast?
I don't think so. I think throughout the show you touched on everything. It might not have been when we were strictly talking about the green tree pythons. It might have been earlier when we were talking about incubation, things like that. So you covered everything that I had. So that's awesome. And I didn't ask Chuck for the hard questions because I wouldn't be able to talk about them with you because I don't have that knowledge. So it's like, yeah, Chuck told me to ask this, and
well, it's one of the hard questions that he had. I'm kind of curious.
Oh, I didn't even ask for him. I was like, well, what should I ask, to get, convey some new information to ball python people that might not be, what's different. And I think you covered that. Probably stuff about locales and things like that, I would guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff about locality stuff. Incubation side of things. I definitely incubate them different than ball pythons. I typically start them for the first 40 days at 87 degrees. I think my last clutch would incubate about 87.2, 87.1. And then about 40 days, I dropped it down a full degree, and I dropped the temperature, the egg box temperature, down to about 86.4. And then by the time they started hatching around day 50, I want to say it was 51 is when the first one started emerging out of the eggs. And then 52 and 50, by the 53rd day, all of them were out. And then by day 54, all of them were up and perched. And so, yeah, but for the first 40 days, you're incubating them at a different temperature. I use a sim container is what I typically incubate a lot of my eggs in. I don't do anything special with it. I don't have holes drilled. What I do is I stack them on top of each other, and I put water in the top one, even if it's got nothing in it, and I leave that on the top to help reduce condensation. And that usually lasts about 6 days to a week. And then I open the lid, wipe it down, wipe the sides, burp it for a few seconds, kind of get some fresh air into there, pop the lid back on, slide it in, and then it stays shut. And then I just wiped it down once a week for the first probably 43 days. By day 45, it felt like it changed to about every 3 days because the temperatures inside, they're moving, they're grooving, they're starting to get ready to hatch. You're messing with the temperature fluctuation a little bit. It's rising. It's also creating more condensation as you drop temps down. And so it's very interesting. You definitely have to be on top of it for those final 10 to 15 days after day 40. And, some people incubate them even less than that. They'll go from 87, drop down to 85. And that's been successful. And there's people that have been incubating them at 86 straight temp, and that is successful too. It's kind of cool because they seem so difficult, and they really are. But there's so many different ways to be successful. It's just what way is going to work for you. What method is going to be the right one that fits your style, not only you keeping, understanding, all of it. You can try so many different methods and none of them will work. But then you find one that does, and you go, well, shoot, I'm going to do it this way, but 20 other people are doing it a completely different way, and you guys are still getting the same end results. So that's the fun thing about today's day and age of sharing all this knowledge, all this experience of, hey, I've done it this way and it was successful. Most people believe that the snakes need to drop to a certain temperature to breed. Shoot, my pair did not. My room did not drop below 79 the entire summer. Most of the day, it would get up into 87, 88. And that's when my female was ovulating. She was building her most follicles when my thermostats weren't even on because the temp was higher than my hotspot. And boom, and then she ovulated, and I would cool the room down at night after, because we had a couple temperatures of like 117 degrees, 115, wow. And so at some points my room would get up to about 92 degrees, and I was nervous. I was stressing. I was trying to get I didn't really want to go the air conditioning route because I didn't want to dry and freeze them out. So what I did is I would sit out there every night. At this point, I kind of had them in a little shop thing, and I would sit with double doors open, fans blowing through, and I would drop it down to about 79, maybe 78 before I had to close the doors back up. Because, there's only so many windows in the Pacific Northwest. It's light at 5 a.m. and it gets dark at 10 p.m. during the summer. And so it's kind of one of those tricky things where it starts warming up quick. So I tried to cool it down as much as I possibly could to where it was the same temp ambient outside. And then it would warm back up during the day naturally. And so it was pretty fascinating to see my animals do that with the opposite temperature cycle that you would typically see. So
Yeah,
I don't know if the temperature did a whole lot with it. It probably did. But, I did food cycle her before that. And then she ended up doing everything we wanted her to. And she laid healthy eggs and gave us healthy babies. And, it was a phenomenal experience to hatch twins and just kind of do all that. But it's just fascinating how opposite and how different certain methods work and what is successful. There's so many different ways to be successful.
Yeah, and it's what works for you, and as long as the animals are healthy and eating and pooping.
Oh yeah, I mean, all of them were here during those temperature spikes. They're all in the same room, and all of them are thriving and doing fantastic right now. So it is healthy for them to get kind of out of the norm, but to consistently keep them out of the norm is definitely not good for them. So you got to find that kind of healthy balance. But for it to naturally do it itself, it was pretty nice because I didn't have my room spike like crazy. By 6 o'clock at night, yeah, it would be warm, but it takes time throughout the day for it to gradually warm up to those temps. It doesn't go from 80 to 100 degrees in 2 hours, and then all of a sudden you're cooking everything. That's definitely a massive difference.
All right, so this might actually be the longest one I've done on this channel. But it's approaching my dinner time. We'll have to do it again sometime. Maybe as when we have more eggs on the ground and stuff, hatchlings out, we can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll see if some green tree python clutches come up, and then I think it'd be awesome to do another one once either some things are getting close to hatching or they've hatched, and maybe do some segments on establishing stuff, and maybe do a couple where I'm feeding and doing things. So I think it'd be a lot of fun to do another one. I mean, I had a great time. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in for all this and listens to me blab and rant.
Thanks to everybody that's if you've been here from the beginning, I applaud you. It's
troopers right there.
2 hours and 15 minutes.
Sticker.
But yeah, I mean, I could do this type of stuff all day. I have to eat. I have to take my dog out. So unfortunately, I do hit a time where it's like, okay, I have to end this, and I hate doing it because for me it feels rude.
I hear my kids being all grumpy and getting annoyed. So I'm sure mom's sitting there going, "Where is he? What's going on?" All right.
It's probably around snack time.
Probably nap time. It's probably 2 o'clock here, 3 o'clock. We've been on for 2 hours. It's probably just after 3. So yeah, definitely ready for someone to take a nap.
All right. So once again, thanks to everybody that's tuned in. Next week, I have a special guest that I will announce later in the week once we get everything squared away as far as how that show will go. So be sure to tune in next Saturday at 4. Once again, thank you. I got distracted because Tucker's sound went a little weird. So be sure to tune in next week if you're new to the channel. Remember, share us out, subscribe. Thanks again. I will see you next week. Be sure I probably went over whoever the heck's after me on the YouTube, but be sure to check out Sophisticated Ignorance tonight on Malacio from Wiz Constrictor's channel. All right. With that, I will see you next week.
See ya.